How to acquire what you desire. Consider the following scenario. You and your partner are going to a very important party, and you want to wear black shoes. However, your spouse wants you to wear brown shoes instead. In this case, how would you go about negotiating? There are a lot of people who think that the ideal outcome in negotiation is a win-win situation or a 50-50 split. If you agree with me, then would you be able to explain to me what the win-win situation is in this scenario? It is your intention to wear one pair of black shoes and one pair of brown shoes. Do you agree that it sounds ridiculous? To put it another way, Chris Voss is of the same mind. He does not believe in situations in which both parties benefit. Chris is the author of a book that debuted on the New York Times bestseller list and is titled, Never Split the Difference, Negotiate as if your life depended on it. Chris has been a hostage negotiator for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, for over 20 years, during which time he has dealt with kidnappers, bank robbers, and extreme terrorists. Since the fundamentals of human negotiations are fundamentally the same in any situation, regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity, he discovered that the information he gained as a hostage negotiator is also applicable to a wide range of commercial and personal life issues. According to him, this is because the fundamentals of human negotiations are the same. There are fundamental similarities between the negotiation process with a terrorist and the negotiation process with a businessman. Every day, we engage in negotiations, such as when you try to convince a buddy to go to a different restaurant, or when you try to encourage the children to go to bed earlier than usual. Chris says that negotiation is not about your way or my way. Rather, it is about finding a third path that makes both parties happy. Our entire lives are a process of negotiation, and Chris insists that this is the case. Consider the following scenario. Two of your children are arguing over chocolate, and they are unable to divide it amongst themselves. Regardless of the manner in which the chocolate is distributed, both of them are dissatisfied and believe that the other side received a greater quantity. In this scenario, the third possible answer is to request that one of the children split the chocolate in an equal manner and then ask the other child to choose first. The 5 things that I picked up from reading the book that will help you become a better negotiator are going to be discussed in this video that I create for you. Lesson number 1. Understand first. From the very beginning of every discussion, the universally applicable law that individuals want to be understood and accepted is the starting point. Listening is the most efficient manner in which we can get there, and it is also the least expensive. When you listen attentively, you are demonstrating empathy and a genuine want to comprehend what the other side is going through. It may appear simple, but you can't even begin to fathom the number of people who forget to pay attention when the opposing side begins to speak. Rather than listening, they are preoccupied with what they are going to say, and when the other side stops speaking, they immediately begin their presentation, regardless of what the other side has just stated. A person on the other side begins to think to themselves, they didn't even listen to a word I was saying. I have no doubt that you have encountered this phenomenon. There are moments when you are conversing with someone and you feel as though you are discussing distinct subjects. In the course of talks, people frequently yell because they have the impression that they have not been heard. In the process of negotiation, everyone has 3 goals. First, they want to be understood. Second, they want to be respected. And third, they want first and foremost to obtain what they want from the negotiation. Expect the negotiation to be unsuccessful if you are unable to listen to what is being said. Lesson number 2. Negotiation is not a battle. Rather than being a conflict, negotiation is more of a discovery. The voices in people's heads might be overwhelming when they regard negotiation as a fight of arguments. Nevertheless, the reality is that negotiation is not a battle. Rather, it is an act with the purpose of discovering something new. The goal is to come to an understanding of what the opposing side desires. How about money, time, respect, recognition, and other things? The author suggests a few different strategies in order to accomplish this goal. The first one is looking at you with a smile. Whenever you smile at someone, it is as if you are reaching out to their brain and turning on a light that is indicative of positive. When we are in a positive state of mind, we are 31% smarter than when we are in a negative state of mind. To put that into perspective, when we are in a negative state of mind, we are 31% dumber. Mirroring is the second strategy employed. Simply repeating the last three or most important words of what your opponent has just stated is an example of mirroring. Your adversary, for instance, may remark something along the lines of, "I have very high expectations and want more money." "Want more money?" is the response you provide. In the beginning, mirroring is a very weird experience. However, with practice, it will become as natural as breathing. In the process of mirroring, the opposite side will throw up information. Stating something like, "What did you mean by that?" is not nearly as impactful as stating this. When you ask your opponent, "What did you mean by that?" you give them a moment to reflect and make the necessary adjustments to their thinking. Mirroring, on the other hand, makes the discourse flow more smoothly and encourages the opponent to divulge more information. Following the completion of the mirroring process, maintain silence for a minimum of 4 seconds and let the mirroring to work its magic. Lesson number 3, tactical empathy. Understanding the emotions and thinking of the other person and listening to what lies behind those feelings is an example of tactical empathy. This type of empathy places a particular emphasis on determining the emotional barriers that are preventing the two parties from reaching a consenting agreement. When you have determined what the feeling is, the next step is to identify it. The term labeling refers to the act of summarizing what your opponent has just shared with you and then returning it to them. It is customary for labels to begin with the phrase, "it seems like," or "it sounds like." You could, for instance, say something like, "It seems like you care a lot about your students." This would be a simple way to label the fact that your opponent talks about his students with a great deal of enthusiasm. Next, maintain your silence and let the label to work its magic. It is useful for 2 reasons. First, it helps you validate that you have identified the appropriate feeling. Second, it signals to your opponent that you actually understand them, which establishes a stronger link and makes your opponent like you. Labeling is beneficial for both of these reasons. If a person likes you, there is a 6-fold increase in the likelihood that you will sign a contract with them. Through empathy, 2 minds are brought together. At the instant when you experience empathy and recognize that there is something that compels you to work together with me, your mental capacity and my mental capacity will come together to find a solution to the problem. The technique of diffusing negativity with labels is yet another tactical strategy of creating empathy. If you are aware that your adversary is enraged and harbors negative thoughts about you, this tactic will prove to be particularly successful. Sit down and think of all of the negative things that your opponent might say against you during the meeting or negotiation before you get to the meeting. This should be done before you travel to the meeting. Create a label for each of the negative emotions that you have identified when you have done so. Take, for instance, the scenario in which you are aware that your client is really dissatisfied with your firm since it failed to meet the deadline and did not produce what was promised. As a result of this information, you are aware that your client believes that you are untrustworthy and unable to fulfill the commitments that you make. Therefore, as soon as you begin the meeting, you have the opportunity to diffuse the negative by saying, "It may appear that we are taking advantage of you, and we are not able to keep our promises and deliver what was agreed upon." As a result of this, you might even think about terminating your commercial relationship with us going forward, and you are completely justified in thinking this way. Immediately after you say this, your adversary will think to himself, he thinks like I do. I have a fondness for him." If you had not diffused the negative, your opponent would have spent hours discussing how badly he feels. However, now that you have diffused all of the negatives, your opponent will be more focused on the solution rather than whining about it. Our brain is affected by negative emotions and the fear of losing 3 times more than it is by positive emotions. Therefore, If you take the time to assist your opponent in overcoming their negative thoughts, you will get far better results. Lesson number 4. Start with no. There is no way to go any closer to victory by exerting a lot of effort to get a yes. No is not the conclusion of the negotiation, as is commonly believed. Rather, it is the beginning of the process. If you say yes to something, you may have feelings of commitment or confinement. As an illustration, if I were to approach you and ask, "Would you be willing to talk for 5 minutes?" and you responded in the affirmative, your brain would immediately begin to ask, how long is 5 minutes going to actually be about? Do you think I will be unable to leave her for an hour and end up arriving home late? Should I expect her to try to sell me her ridiculous concept once more? You are unable to concentrate on the negotiation since your head is filled with all of those distractions. Getting out of there as quickly as possible is the only thing you want to do. If I were to approach you and ask, "Is it a bad time to talk for 5 minutes?" you would most likely respond with, "No, it's not, but let me finish X, Y, and Z and meet you in 15 minutes at my desk." This is in contrast to the situation in which I would try to convince you to say yes. You have a sense of security because you did not make any commitments, because you began with the word no. In addition, the act of declining offers you control. It was you who suggested that we get together in 15 minutes. You are able to think more quickly and more efficiently when you have a sense of control, which also enables you to concentrate on the implementation without any interruptions. Also, when you responded with a negative answer, you answered 2 to 3 questions that were coming up on your own. It was not necessary for me to inquire about the location or time of our meeting. You provided me with everything I desired without requiring me to put forth any effort. Lesson number 5. That's right. When it comes to negotiating, "That's right" is one of the most powerful sentences that you have the opportunity to hear. You only need to take the words that your opponent has said and repeat them back to them in order to obtain this response. Despite the fact that it may appear to be a simple and even foolish thing to perform, it is effective. In other words, it amplifies the empathy of the opposing side. As soon as you hear, "That's right," you can be certain that the transaction is very close to being finalized. The phrase, "That's right," is what we say when we believe that the other side truly understands us and when we feel that we have been totally considered. The phrase, "That's right," is also used during aha moments. Take care. If you get the response, "You're right," it indicates that you have entirely failed the test. Although there is only a slight distinction between these two statements, the implication is extremely significant. Someone who says, "You're right," is most often attempting to get rid of you or put an end to the conversation they are having with you. It is one of the most challenging jobs out there to interact with other people. It doesn't matter how good you are at your profession. If you have terrible people skills, it's quite probable that you will have a difficult time at work. Look at the video that is currently playing on your screen if you want to increase your ability to interact with other people. I appreciate you viewing, and I hope you have a good day.